Good tidings to you, everybody out there in Radioland. I want to say Radioland because that sounds more classy. Podcastville. Not as much. It's like radio. We're still kind of on radio zone-ish. Ishy. Feels real ishy. Yeah, today I'm going to be talking to a more recent friend of mine, Ash Ritter. I've met Ash through the herb store, the Tucson herb store. There's a full-on plug for the Tucson herb store. Check it out. And gotten to be friendly over the years here since she moved to Tucson about, I think, 4 or 5 years ago. And great person, super fun. She's my Aquarian sister. And a wealth of herbal knowledge. She is quite the herbalist. Very, very learned. And it's just great. We go off on all kinds of tangents when we hang out and talk, and a lot of fun stuff. Get into a lot of fun stuff, and I'm excited to talk to her today about her life, just where she's from and how she got involved in herbal medicine and where that has brought her to this day. She teaches classes and workshops. She's an amazing culinary artist. I think mostly vegan dishes and incredible like herbal soups. And she also has a Candy of the Month club, which we are subscribed to right now. Getting these amazing herbal infused candy, caramels and fudge, chocolate, raw chocolates. It's, oh, yum. Yum. So, if that hasn't tantalized your taste buds, I hope that this episode will. Let us dip into the fun zone with my friend Ash Ritter.
All my friends till the very end, thank you for the fun and the play. Until next time, I hope you all do fine. Live to see another day. My pals and my peers, throughout all the years, you've done so much and wished to be.
So it's really nice to have the bird sounds on the show. We've had so many shows out here now, and it's great. It's great to like have that infused into our talks.
Oh yeah.
It's great. And so you came over today here and you brought some pu'er tea.
I did.
Yeah.
I did.
In these amazing clay. What is it? What is this here that I'm drinking from?
Oh gosh, actually these are made, these cups, they stack, by the way. They're stackable. They're made by a local ceramicist named Ursula. So thanks, Ursula.
Thank you. In Tucson.
In Tucson, we bartered. I traded her herbal candy for these beautiful, I said, please make me the smallest teacups you've ever made.
They are great. They're like such a nice size. I love it.
They make a good
It's
sound,
really good.
too. I'm all about the sound of, like...
You hear that? And that? Scratching at the tea.
Scratching it.
Pawing at the tea. For some pu'er. I gotta get more pu'er. I
Yeah.
might get this might get me a little zippy, huh?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, but it's like a unique kind of zippy. It's different than this other tea that I brought you here.
Yes. Yeah,
Yopon. So the Yopon
Yeah.
is one of them.
Yeah.
And the Latin name is Ilex vomitoria, so don't be scared.
That is, I mean, how does that happen?
So that's, when you look at these old ethnobotanical texts, this is a tree, this is a holly family tree that grows in the south, like in Georgia and around there. And it gets the Latin name because when botanists came through to what we now call the United States, and they saw how indigenous people were working with this plant, they were like, oh, it's an emetic. Like, it makes you throw up.
Yeah.
You know? So let's just name it after barfing.
It's a barf plant.
But it's more than that. I mean, it's probably our only truly native plant in the U.S. that's caffeine containing.
Really?
And theobromine containing, which people think only is in chocolate, but it's also in this.
In this too? Mm. So this is phenomenal. I'm excited. I'm really excited. I wish I had brewed it right now and drinking it while we're talking about it, but I'm excited to try it out and hearing more of its history. And so how do you say it's the
Yopan or Yopan? And I brought it up too because this is like that's a way different kind of zippy than pu'er.
Yeah. What's the difference? So pu'er is like I'm going to be firing off questions left and right here.
I mean, for me, so I'm already kind of like mentally bumblebee kind of person. Pu'er actually kind of feels like a really grounding, embodied energy to me. Mm-hmm. And Yopan's related to yerba mate.
Got it.
And Guayusa, which is this other plant. But those feel a lot more like I'm about to zing out of my body into some sort of reverberating echo or something. It's a different...
Zing, ting, ting. Going wild with the...
Well, and it's like the history... The first time I ever experienced Guayusa, which is Yopan's cousin, was in Peru when I was studying in Peru, and the way that I was introduced to it wasn't to drink it. It was to bathe with it as a kind of a protective...
Yeah.
Anyway, so, the stories that people have and all the different ways we can work with plants, there's layers and layers and layers.
Yeah. It's really interesting, though. Yeah, the only caffeinated plant in the U.S.
Yeah.
It's so weird, because you just think about, like, we're drink mate often, and there's green tea, pu'er, and coffee. I mean, these plants that are contain caffeine, and so, hey, here it is right there.
It is right there.
It's really cool. It's exciting.
Yeah. Well, and that's the thing is a lot, I mean, I want to do a class about this one day, but so much of the, like, stimulant plants that people know and love have this deep-seated history with, like, really problematic behaviors of humanity. Slavery is connected to all these stimulant plants that make capitalism go.
Yeah, right. Yeah, like, yes.
So, not to get too dark and stormy at the beginning of this interview.
We'll come in with that later. A storm front will roll in a little later, and then we'll quit.
No, but it is interesting to think about, just how to engage with a stimulating plant that's from our landscape, so we're not necessarily getting stuff from far all the time.
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah.
And, it's interesting, too, just like how, thinking about plants that are stimulating and caffeine, contain caffeine. And what do you do with that, right? Where's the energy going to go?
Yep.
I'd like to think everyone's going to create with that energy, or harness it in a way. I know a lot of meditators that'll use green tea and matcha and for meditation, just to help get them a little more like focused, instead of going to crunch the numbers all day.
That's
and
right.
Crunching numbers. You don't have to crunch numbers.
No.
You can hold the numbers and no crunching, just caressing the numbers. You don't have to
transcend the numbers.
Transcend the numbers. Use these teas to transcend the number game.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's the whole thing. Is a lot of the caffeine plants, if you look at the history too. Yeah, there's usually a lot of ritual aspects around how that energy is contained.
Like how?
Oh gosh. I mean, the first thing I'm thinking of, the Ethiopian coffee ceremony. I mean, you roast it right there in front of your guests and you burn a ton of frankincense and it becomes this really intense sensory altered state and an experience that's requires a lot of presence, you know, and same thing with the Japanese tea ceremony, you know, the chado, the matcha, same thing with gongfu cha, the Chinese tea ceremony. It's this engaging in this very intentional, present awareness.
Yeah.
Which is way different than getting a matcha frappuccino at a drive-thru and like go into the mall.
Zipping around with the matcha frap.
Yeah.
Frapping away.
Yeah.
Going up the Route 5.
Yeah.
Frapping your map.
Yeah.
I'm feeling frappy today.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, right. So that there's a little more of a sacredness to using these plants. And yeah, I obviously want to ask you more questions about this. And for now, just kind of pivoting back to where are you from?
Oh gosh.
Who are you, Ash?
I still am trying to. I'm in that existential space all the time. Who am I?
Yeah.
Nah, it's as far as this human being, Ash. I grew up in Southern California.
Yeah.
In beautiful Silver Strand Beach, Oxnard, California.
Okay.
So it was, at least when I was growing up, it was the place where I think the most strawberries were grown in the U.S.
Really?
Strawberry fields.
Strawberry fields forever.
Forever. And in Oxnard, right along the edge, there are all of these different beach communities. So I grew up on Silver Strand Beach, which at the time was just super funky.
Yeah.
A lot of surfers and stoners and kind of working class. You know, there's a military base there, so some of those people were there, and
yeah.
Thank goodness I grew up there.
Yeah.
Because
what was
I
it?
had a lot of freedom.
A lot of freedom. Yeah.
I mean, I mean, I won't get into this, but my parents would let me just walk to the beach when I was, 8 years old. So I would just walk down the street barefoot.
Yes.
And just go kind of sit and stare out at the ocean.
Oh,
and
gosh. It's nice.
I kind of didn't realize it until later that was kind of my first sort of relationship with like a divine quality of life.
Yeah.
Something that I knew could like eat me up. So it held this sort of intense, I had to be reverent because it held this intensity that was so beautiful and sparkling, but also pretty gnarly.
Yeah.
Because Silver Strand Beach is famous for surfers because the waves are bigger and more kind of wild style than other beaches around Southern California. It's not like a lapping, delightful bath.
Like, so full on, like, real deal, like, locals only.
Kind of, yeah.
Point break.
People would get territorial.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I grew up there until I was 10.
Okay.
And then I ended up moving with my mom and my two sisters to Wisconsin.
That's a change.
Yeah. It was a huge reality shift. And I learned so much from going from one place to another. You know, at that age, right? When I was like budding, like prepubescent kind of vibes, trying to figure out who I was. I'm still figuring out who I am, but...
Right.
Yeah, so between 10 and 15, I lived in Wisconsin in this really tiny, like, donut hole of a town called Thiensville.
Thiensville.
Yeah, shout out to Thiensville. Not that far from Milwaukee.
Okay.
But yeah, it was a whole other world.
Yeah, what was it like going... I mean, that's a huge change going from surfer land to wide open space, ocean to that little town.
Mm-hmm. What was it like? Well, and to clarify too, like Oxnard was this really interesting blend of surfer land, but at the time I lived there, it was primarily Mexica, Mexican people. Mm-hmm. So culturally speaking, that was the vibe that I grew up in. you know, like mija to all of my friends' moms and grandmas, and
Yeah.
grew up with that. So then, yeah, I get to Wisconsin, and it's this very kind of white bread, like big husky Nordic people, like bratwursts on the back of the car at the football game kind of thing.
Yeah.
So it seemed really straight-laced at first. And I remember looking out at the land and being like, where are the mountains?
Yeah.
This is flat.
Pretty flat.
Flat and cows, but beautiful, and a lot happened.
Yeah. How did you get like plugged in there? Was there a community? Was there like-minded souls?
Oh gosh.
And I imagine, I don't know if this is true, but like usually, you know, I find we connect through music that way. And like when you're like, okay, you like that? Great. We're rolling.
That reminds me of, so I went to summer camps when I started living out there.
Yeah.
And I remember going to this summer camp, and one of the camp counselors was playing this cassette tape, and I was just taken away by it. I was enamored with it.
Yeah.
So I asked her what it was, and she said, "Oh, this is the Grateful Dead."
Oh.
And it was the Europe '72 live album.
Which I finally listened to this past summer for the first time ever.
Man.
Because I was recommended by a friend, and you too. You were also like, that's the one, listen to that. And
Well, yeah.
so, yeah. So,
It's nostalgic for me because because of stumbling upon it and this summer camp vibe where we're like shooting bow and arrow and making rain sticks out of paper towel tubes. It was like fond memories.
What was the camp called?
Oh man, I don't remember.
See, that's the puer talking. It's fast questions. Camp. What's the camp's name?
Oh God.
What was your bunk number?
I don't even remember what the camp was called. Totally forgot.
Yeah.
I don't know. Totally forgot.
But it was really great.
But it was great. And that actually ended up kind of... I grew up in a super musical home, you know, and that really... So right away, I just latched onto that album, and I was like, okay, let me find everything I can from 1972 because I like this sound.
Yeah.
You know, so I would go to this record shop called I'd have my mom drive, I was 11, 12 years old. I'd have my mom drive me to, thanks Mom, to the Exclusive Company, this record shop.
The Exclusive Company?
That's what it was called.
Wow.
This record store.
That's rad.
And, just started trying to find things in that web of relationship to that album.
Yeah.
And concurrently, I was also very into grunge music.
Yes.
Because it helped with my youthful angst.
Yeah. That's the Nobody Understands Me music.
Oh, yeah.
Like Nirvana?
Like Kurt Cobain. I had a huge Kurt Cobain poster in my room.
Nice.
Huge.
Yes.
Love him.
Yeah.
Yeah, Nirvana, Soundgarden.
Like an entire wall just laminated of...
Yeah, Kurt Cobain had one of those neon orange blow-up couches.
Yeah. Yes.
Just so I could just look at his lovely, lovely eyes.
Yes. Yes.
But yeah, so music was, and still to this day, but was my, greatest joy.
Yeah.
Greatest joy. And I just spent so much time and listening to the radio a lot. I was really, really into the radio from young. In fact, I always wanted to be a radio DJ.
Really?
Yep.
Interesting.
From a young age.
Yeah.
Really wanted to be a DJ.
Like what kind of, just from listening to even like this music, grunge, or was it like classic rock station where you were just kind of just going through and be like, I love the radio, I'm just going to listen to...
At that age, I just would listen to whatever, and I was into kind of the grunge rock radio and the classic rock radio.
Yeah.
But then throughout my teens, and I would find these, the college radio stations.
Yes.
And that blew my mind.
Yes.
I would just listen so intently and take notes, and take notes, and by the time that... Like,
Sorry, yeah.
it was like the Napster. So the Napster started, now I'm spanning over some years, but Napster started coming into the picture, and Soulseek was the one that I found.
Oh, okay.
Remember that one?
Yeah, that I do.
Soulseek was the cool one because you could find these real weird...
That was some of the weirder off-kilter music.
So just, breaking my mom's work laptop with computer viruses, downloading like psychedelic, Nigerian rock music, and just things happened, so snowballed from that.
A STD, a streaming transmittable disease.
Oh, no. I guess, yeah.
I just made that. I'm sure someone thought of that, but off the top of my head.
Wow.
There you go. Ta-da.
Oh, no.
That's it. That's the puer.
It is. It does that.
I really, a theme too in the show has been like pre-internet.
Yeah.
And so it's just, I really like thinking back, and people I've been talking with, like, you go to these music stores, like you said, writing down, you hear something, that's all we had. We didn't look it up. We have it at our disposal, right? The whole disposal, the whole world, all the music ever created. And then you had to really hunt for it and search. So you hear something, you got to take a note, you got to like look, you got to, talk to people. The record store was like the hub for finding out about music and getting to know things. So, and college radio, like you said, college radio, like that was it, man. Like,
amazing.
Yeah.
Mind-blowing.
Yes.
I stumbled upon so many things from college radio, but I also definitely give my parents a ton of love and gratitude for their taste in music.
So your dad...
Yeah.
Tell me about your dad. What's my
dad's
the music?
great. Both of my parents are awesome.
I don't want to just say your dad. Both are great, but tell me about him. And just because I know you've talked a little bit about your dad, and I'm like, wow, this is fascinating.
Yeah.
As a musician.
So my dad. So when I, growing up in the household, like, we had an amazing vinyl record collection, and there was always music coming from. We lived in this amazing A-frame house on Silver Strand, and there was always like music and a little bit of pot smoke like wafting through the air. So that probably explains some of my like, curiosity around the weird. But
yes.
So there was always amazing music. We had a Fender Rhodes in the house. There was always amazing music surrounding. But my dad, when I was a youth, he owned an art gallery. And a framing business. So the arts were always like the thing as a kid. But before, in his younger days, he was a drummer.
Yeah.
And he grew up in New York. He grew up in Queens. And he grew up with his best friend was who people know as the Ramones family. That's a stage name.
Right. Right. Yes.
But he grew up, his best friend was...
The last name is not all Ramones.
No, it is not. I think their actual real last name is Hyman, if my memory serves me right.
I think you're right, yeah.
Yeah. So my dad was a drummer in a band with Mickey Ramone, Mickey Hyman, and it actually was... It was a power trio, as he likes to call it. Yes. And this was kind of, I always thought that he was a hippie, but then the more I kind of understood his history and the history of the music movements, he was kind of right on that edge between, this stronger, like Led Zeppelin style rock music, bass heavy rock music, and pre-punk.
Yeah.
So he was in this band playing the drums with Mickey, and...
What was it called?
It was called Purple Majesty. And they actually pressed a record that was produced by Joey Ramone when Joey Ramone was 16. He produced their record. And the story goes that this record got lost. This record got lost, for 40 years, 50 years... 40 years. And then somebody rediscovered the record in their collection maybe about 10 years ago.
What?
And then a record company, I can't remember the name of the record company, but they ended up repressing it. And it was this huge, huge deal for my dad to all of a sudden, like, kind of have this musician history that he left aside to do the art thing, kind of to be recognized for that background that he had.
Yeah.
But, yeah, that's part of his story.
Can I listen to it?
Yeah.
It's out. You can, like...
You can find it. Well, the band is called Purple Majesty, and there's the word time in the song title. I can't remember.
That's amazing.
But yeah, that's part of my dad's story. And then he, when he similar but different to me. It's like he dropped out of high school when he was young, started going to the School of Visual Arts, night school in New York, and started working as a graphic designer pre-computers. Yeah. So his story to me, without revealing some of the stories I probably shouldn't share without his permission, is that, like, he...
That'll be for the outtakes.
Yeah. He figured that doing the art thing would be, like, a stable livelihood. And also I know that, there was some debaucherous things happening amongst young rock and roll teens in that,
really?
In the
really?
late 60s, and yeah.
They weren't all going to Bible study every night?
Nope. Oh. Nope.
Jeez. How about that?
No, we're not.
So he was in New York at the time. Was he also, like, doing the, like, CBGB's thing? Was he there for...
I think so. I know that they played shows. I think it was either Mickey's mom, or one of the moms would drive them to play gigs at, like, I know he would play in Greenwich Village and has some stories about.
It's like this like total biker dude just went right by down the road. I was like, it was perfect compliment to where we just were in the rock zone. I was like, literally, he looked over at us like, yeah. I know what you guys are talking about.
All right.
All right. It was ridiculous. That doesn't happen much.
But yeah, I know there were gigs being played and fun being had.
Sure. Fun. There we go.
Major fun.
Yes.
Yeah.
Major
fun. Major fun. Like, a teenager's dream.
Yeah.
Like,
yes.
Yeah, I'll just, the sex, drugs, rock and roll, like.
Yeah, classic.
And again, like, there are things that I probably shouldn't know. There are things that I do know.
Yeah.
And it's all good.
Yes, exactly.
It's all good.
It's there.
Yeah, but that's, like, a little bit about my dad.
So growing up in that zone, yeah, quite a neat sounding environment to, like, be pulling music from, just being surrounded by this and art and music. And,
thank goodness.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, like, that's really neat. That's some nurture.
Yeah, I mean, and, like, there was a lot of, dysfunctional weirdness.
Yeah, of course.
And this and that.
Yeah.
And, our foundation was always in music and the arts. And
there's, like, a siren right after you said that, too. This is ridiculous. We're getting, like, cue the sound effects, reality sound effects for everything we're doing.
It's just
dysfunction.
What does it mean?
I know, yes. It's a sign.
But, yeah, my sisters and I, we always had permission to be who we wanted to be.
Yeah.
And I didn't necessarily learn how to, like, be a successful businesswoman necessarily, but I always had permission to explore what made my heart sing.
Yeah.
More or less. I still, like, there's still the, like, little pressures here and there.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, I understand that.
Yeah.
There's pressures even if you don't have that push to be like,
yeah,
climb the corporate ladder, crunch the numbers.
Yeah, so thank goodness. And both of my parents, I'm not like an astrology dogmatist, but both of my parents are water signs. So they're both like way deep poets at heart.
Yeah. Yeah. Yes. Yeah, pulling from the well. And,
pulling from the well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Makes sense. And so your mom, too, she was, like, also in that camp, art, poetry.
Kind of. My mom is really multifaceted and awesome. Hi, Mom. I know she's going to listen.
Hello.
Hi.
I met your mom. Once
Yeah.
at the shop. Yeah.
She rocks.
Yeah.
When she was, so she grew up in Milwaukee.
Yeah.
And when she graduated high school, I'm sure I'm missing things in the storyline, but she ended up being a respiratory therapist.
Oh.
But was always a poet at heart and traveled, in Europe when she was 19 and then moved to San Francisco in the very early 70s.
Yeah.
And there are a lot of stories from that era that I don't have permission to tell at all.
I love it. You'll just people have to use their imagination out there.
Oh, yeah. Just picture what was happening in the Haight in the early 70s. And my mom was there. And she ended up, all the things happened. She ended up moving to L.A. to be a makeup artist.
Really?
For film.
Interesting.
Mm-hmm. And then that was around the era that she met my dad, because my dad came out to do the art gallery thing.
Yeah.
I guess in the mid 70s or later 70s to LA. So my parents met in Los Angeles area.
Did she end up doing that in the movies or?
Mm-hmm.
Like, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. What kind? What kind of? Do you remember?
I don't remember. I mean, there's this famous picture of my mom with the bald cap on. I know she really liked doing makeup of that nature.
Yes. Yes.
But
I'll have to get her on and get some of those stories.
Family famous picture, not like famous to anyway.
Yeah.
I don't remember. I know some of the names. I remember her talking about doing makeup on Rick James and he was spun out of control. Things like this, which I could only imagine in that era. Like,
oh my gosh,
people were wiling out. So,
oh, wily coyotes, just then they're freaking out and wiling out, and yeah, probably can't sit still, all coked up, and
pretty much.
Your mom's trying to put makeup on,
do nice eyeliner,
can't stop moving, shaking, getting super freaky.
Yeah, pretty much.
Super freaky and super cheeky.
Yes.
So you that was bad.
Yeah.
That was a dumb joke, but it's okay. That's how it happens here. You went to I take full responsibility for the puns. You went basically from Milwaukee, then where'd you go after that? Did you end up in
So I ended up moving back to my hometown when I was 16 and living on a sailboat with my dad.
Wow.
Which was really cool. So I lived on a sailboat with my dad for 2 years.
Wow.
Which really infused a lot of all of this backdrop really infused a lot of who I became and who I'm still becoming. But just being in the rhythm of nature.
Would you be like houseboat kind of thing? Like you're on the water living?
Yeah, we were docked, because I was in high school.
Yeah, wow.
I was like a high school learning how to drive, like starting to date for the first time and living on a 32-foot sailboat with my dad, which was, again, it was amazing, but it also was, interesting.
Yeah.
It was interesting. But it's...
Was it always moving? How was
Yeah.
So did you just get used to that?
Yes, sea legs.
Sea legs.
Got your sea legs. Yeah.
Do you prefer that more on the boat or off?
Sea legs on the boat.
Sea legs on the boat. So just being on that rhythm of the water.
Well, I think the sea leg thing is when you get off the boat and you're still kind of
sea legs. That's after.
Like a rubber band sort of Gumby guy.
Yeah.
But I loved, you're rocked to sleep by the sound of the little dinging of the line hitting the sail pole. And, the wind chime as the wind chime dings.
Oh, come on. Okay, we are not
little
doing that.
Little seagull alarm clock. seagull alarm
Yeah.
clock, and
Seagull alarm clock.
so it was amazing, and it also incredibly humbling, you know, because like I stayed in this tiny little aft cabin, which was essentially just like, you know, my bed,
Yeah.
and then I, you know, had my what do you call that, portable CD player
Yeah.
with my little headphones.
Yes.
But it required
Discman.
us
The
to stay.
Discman.
Yeah, the Discman. But I stayed outside a lot because it's like when the sun's out, you get up and you're chilling outside.
Yeah.
So that happened, and then I did end up moving in with my mom for my last kind of leg of high school era.
Yeah.
I dropped out of regular high school.
Yes.
There was a certain point where, especially coming from the Wisconsin school system to the California school system and realizing that I just felt like the teachers weren't into it. They weren't into, you know, getting us to think. I had, you know, my biology teacher was great. But, no, I just felt like babysitting, and it was again like the time that I started smoking cannabis, so I had all these kind of interesting, like, openings around really genuinely wanting to learn, but I had big questions that high school couldn't answer.
Yeah.
Big
Yeah.
questions.
Yeah.
So thank my lucky stars, we found this, like, what do they call it? Middle college program, where I could start going to community college when I was 17 and finish high school with these, like, 3-day-a-week things. And
Yeah.
that was mind-blowing. A lot happened in that time because all of a sudden I was taking whatever classes I wanted in community college, happened to sign up for a cultural anthropology class, and met my first mentor. And a lot changed. So yeah, it was around the time where I was starting to like hang out at dead shows,
Yeah.
explore different entheogens, explore my mind and the nature of reality, and
Yeah.
yeah, it was a really powerful time. Like, needless to say, and I've told this story before, I think in one of my classes, but you know, I really liked going. Bookstores were my safe place. Bookstores were my safe place. So I remember going to this metaphysical bookstore in Los Angeles when I was a teenager, and I happened to find this book called Hallucinogens and Shamanism by Michael Harner. Didn't know anything about him, and I was reading it before class on my first day of class with this professor, John Baker, this anthropologist, and he was like, "What are you reading?" And I thought, oh no, you know, like I'm about to get in trouble.
Yeah.
He's like, "Let's talk after class." And he ended up saying like, "Hey, that's a colleague of mine, and
What?
I'd love to hear more about your interest in this. And actually, you know, I studied some ethnobotany too when I was getting my PhD and was looking at the native, you know, connection and relationship with Datura." And I was like, what? I could do this in outside of a dead show parking lot? You know, like I could do this in an academic, and at the time I thought that was the pinnacle, right? I'm like, I could do this in an academic context and write books and give classes and lectures. Like, oh my God. So all of a sudden these doors started opening where I loved school. I was excited about school for a time.
Yeah.
And I don't know, I became a little bit disenchanted with the field. I loved this teacher, but the field of anthropology felt so racist and dry and acting like all of these things were done. You know, like this primitive culture once upon a time did this and that and the other thing, and it was, you know, romanticizing and putting it in the past and at that,
and that's all done. We know it all now.
yeah,
all
God,
done.
you know, so problematic. And around that same time, someone handed me this book called True Hallucinations by Terence McKenna. You know, so all of a sudden, all these things started churning in my world, and I realized I don't want to study this like it's dead and gone. I want to study this from people.
Yeah.
From people whose reality this is, and
Yeah.
where it's held with with reverence, and there's a context. So I ended up, a bunch of stuff happened, but I ended up moving up to San Francisco to go finish my bachelor's degree at this really awesome liberal arts college that ended up getting shut down, but
because it was so good. And,
well, apparently they weren't teaching enough of the main subjects to keep their accreditation. And
got it.
There was other stuff too, but New College of California.
New College of California.
Yeah, where I could get a degree in consciousness healing and ecology with a minor in culture ecology and sustainable community. And then it's like, I remember my mom being like, how are you going to get a job with that? Like, people aren't even going to understand what that means.
What do those words mean?
Yeah, but it was great. And
that's like
there's so many things that happened after that.
Yeah.
From that.
Yeah. Did you meet Michael Harner? Or did you ever
I did.
You did? And so for people that know that, he's pretty famous. He's, one of the classic books is The Way of the Shaman. It's,
when he was one of the first Westerner, white dudes to go, one of the first to go connect in and work with people in the Amazon. So, there's, it's a kind of like sensitive terrain. But yeah, at the time, I was like 22 or something like this, 23. And yeah, went to the New College. As soon as I finished New College, I went down from North Bay into San Francisco to take one of Michael Harner's programs.
Oh.
And then from there, it's like everything kept spider webbing, like moved to San Francisco with the intention of studying with Michael Harner, and then ended up getting sidetracked and working at this raw food restaurant that has a lot of
what was that one?
Cafe Gratitude. Which is like another crazy story, but
yeah.
Oh man.
Yeah, you worked there for a little bit.
I worked there for a little bit, and I got fired for insubordination. It was just a little. It got a little wild there. The notion of superfoods, right? Like, here's a traditional ancestral food that people are going to rebrand and sell for only well-to-do people to afford. And it started really opening my eyes into some of the nuance of the health world and how to really approach it, where it gave honor to ancestral people.
Yeah.
And it was accessible to anybody that wanted it.
Yeah.
So all of a sudden I started having this opening of, okay, I want to deal with people where this is their ancestry. I want to deal with people where, we're making things accessible and for anybody that's interested in being well, and what does being well even mean, and who am I in that, So I ended up going to Peru.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is another crazy story.
What happened in Peru? You say that, I gotta go and ask you that.
Well, all I'll say is when I was in the Bay Area, I remember I was actually, when I was finishing college, we had to do like a mentorship program where we would go volunteer with someone whose work we found intriguing.
Yeah.
And of course, I found these two women that did vortex healings, and I was like, I have no idea what this even means, but these ladies say that vortex is on their land, so I'm gonna go see if they'll let me volunteer for them. And that was like super far out, but but fascinating, right? And I came from this anthropology background where, like, the cool part of that is I always wanted to do field work.
Yeah.
I'm like, And honestly, that's what made me the herbalist I am today, because I would just, whoever I was curious about, I would go to and be like, hey, do you need help washing your dishes?
Yeah.
Like, hey, do you need help doing your laundry? Do you need help with anything? And just try and hang out with them.
Yeah.
And hear their story and hold it in a good way, you know. But
yeah,
they had invited this Peruvian curandera up to their property to do a winter solstice gathering. And we were all sitting and giving thanks for the Mother Earth and this and that and saying nice things to a tree. And and all of a sudden, this woman, Ada, looks at me glaringly with a fire in her eyes, and she points at me and she goes, "Androgino!" Starts screaming androgino at me. And I thought, what? How does she know? Because I've always, you know, when I was a youth, I was always a tomboy.
Yeah.
Always felt like kind of this ability to transcend and like move between masculine and feminine ways of being, thinking and being and in the world. And she's screaming at me, "Androgino, androgino." And I was like, what, you know, what do I do? And she ends up talking to me afterwards, and she's like, "My dear, you know, I'd like to spend some more time with you and talk to you." And I won't tell that whole story publicly, but she ended up saying, "I'd like to have you in my, you know, in my home in Peru and show you what we have going on." And I refused it at first. I was like, you know, I'm so interested, you don't even know, but I don't want to be another North American person just coming down and swooping in on your on what you got going on. And she's like, no, like we need you to come. And I went. So after the whole fiasco with Cafe Gratitude, you know, I went to Peru and went into the jungle and got eaten alive by mosquitoes and met a lot of really, really beautiful plants. And just had a lot of insight and clarity and humbling healing happen. Yeah. But it was great. Yeah. Love traveling by myself. You know, so really fun.
This is all by yourself these days. Just, I mean, I think that's great. Yeah. It's like, I don't know if I could do that. I feel like I'm squeamish for traveling alone, and you know, like, yeah, it's cool.
It was amazing. Yeah, there's so much that I could say about that experience. But ultimately, it just helped give me more context into why, you know, again, like being a teenager and being kind of irreverent and seeing what happens in dead show parking lots, and then all of a sudden having a cultural context around working with plants and rites of passage and initiation. I mean, it really gave me a foundation from which to continue my study of that, because I was studying that and I wrote my whole college thesis about that, but it was all out of books. Yeah. You know? And then all of a sudden I was like, this is still living and
experiential.
Needs to be held in a good way, because this was right around the time where that whole kind of ecotourism was, it was just before that started kind of popping off, and people started coming back to the Bay Area and having ceremonies in their, you know, kitchen and whatever. Weird vibes.
Right. And so there's a lot there. I understand. So
there's a lot there.
Yeah. And then coming back, so you came back to the Bay Area, and I know you were working in a tea shop. After, like, is that after this, kind of like doing that and starting to do more studies and?
Yeah, and it was interesting too, because around that time, you know, I had connected in with some people who I thought I really wanted to be connected in with this whole kind of psychedelic academia clique in the Bay Area.
Yeah.
So I started seeking those people out and going to the conferences, and eventually, befriended one of these people and was invited to start participating and like, oh, do you want to, come with us to Burning Man and lecture on the same stage Terence McKenna lectured at? And
Yeah.
needless to say, I got pretty jaded, honestly, especially after, some of my experiences. I just felt like there's no way in heck that I could do this for personal gain and personal gain alone. And that's what I saw a lot of the kind of, entheogen stuff in the Bay Area looking like, was like, oh yeah, we're going to try and get this substance decriminalized, but really, every weekend we're partying, like just enjoying it for fun, even though we're trying to get it used for this sort of, as like a treatment for addiction. And to me, it's like, well, that's not how my elders, when I was studying with these different people, I'm like, that's not how they work. They work with plants. They don't use plants to treat like allopathy, where it's like, let's just treat this Western problem. It's, plants are to connect with your ancestors. These plants.
Yeah.
The plants are to be part of the living matrix.
Yeah.
Not to use for like ego and recreation on the weekends necessarily.
The real world wide web.
The real. So there was just a lot of stuff bubbling up from that time. And it took me a while to kind of find my footing, when really in retrospect, I did go to the Bay Area looking for community around that.
Yeah.
And I ended up realizing that I had to look, inward more than I had to look outward, and really decide how I wanted to relate to that kind of terrain. Yeah. But it got weird. It got weird, and it got great, and it got weird, and it got great, and I met so many interesting people, and just kept trying to find people that I appreciated what they were doing, and saying like, how can I be in service?
Yeah.
You want me to wash all your tincture bottles?
Yes.
and, and things started happening.
Yeah. Yeah, so you're basically, you had this path moving forward, and just kind of like you got like this leapfrogging and moving ahead here into in your path, and then...
Well, I'm leapfrogging almost beyond what I could even conceive of. Because, like, I remember when I was working at that restaurant...
That's like leap-toading.
Yeah. When I was... Ribbit.
Yeah.
Croak. When I was working at that restaurant, I remember I was talking about rosemary to one of my coworkers, and this guy came up to me who was a frequent customer there, and he's like, well, Rosemary's partner plant is bay. And I was like, what?
Oh.
And we started talking, and...
The bay leaf. Bay trees.
The bay trees, and we start talking.
That you put in your soup, everyone.
That's right.
But there's more to it. There's more to the bay.
There's more to the bay. But long story short, I ended up studying with him for 4 years.
Wow.
And his background was in Druid magic and Druid herbalism. So I ended up studying with him for 4 years. Then all of a sudden, he leads me to this herbalist who has a really big practice in the Bay Area. That's who I started volunteering, watching tincture bottles for, just so I could hear what he would talk about and kind of get a grip on, like, what does it look like to have an apothecary and a clinical herbal practice. And ended up being his first employee. And then from there, I got introduced to this man named Charles Garcia. Ended up being his apprentice for 2 years, Chuck. And he is a very controversial, awesome character. Love you, Chuck. But yeah, he taught...
Controversial, like...
he has had the California School of Traditional Hispanic Herbalism.
Okay.
And people would always be like, Hispanic is, you don't say that word. Hispanic, are you Mexican? Like, do you want to identify as part, colonized by Spaniards? And his whole background was history. I mean, he's herbal practitioner, but his whole background was history and studying with Chuck. He said, look, I'm a product of both. I'm a product of all these things. And he was very matter of fact about it. And he is a true historian. And that's where I realized that so much of my interest in herbalism was actually about ceremony and rites of passage and history and understanding how everything connects and how did the plant thyme get to California, and like what's the story, how do the plants tell the story of the people?
Because Simon Garfunkel sang about it.
Oh yeah.
Brought all...
But of course, it's like, anyway, just everything kept leading to another. Chuck took me to my first herbal conference because I was like hidden. Went to my first herbal conference in the Southwest.
Oh yeah.
Out here,
right.
fell in love with the Southwest.
Yeah.
So things were snowballing faster than I could have even imagined. And at the same time, I'm living in San Francisco and always traveling on foot and on bus.
Yeah.
And I had this maybe 2-year, 3-year period where I kept being the first person at the scene of some crazy stuff happening on the street. And I felt like, in a way, I was being called to level up my practice, not just for, like, personal, exploration, but to be helpful in service.
Stuff on the street, like someone losing it, accidents.
All of it.
Everything.
Accidents, heart attacks.
Wow.
Hit by the Muni, like all different things that I saw. And I'd be the first one there. And I was like, well, I guess I'm going to learn about herbal first aid. I guess maybe I'll learn about some first responder stuff, and maybe I'll get into this realm of understanding how to work with plants. And maybe, it would be cool to think about what does it look like to thrive in a world where I'm not relying on an outer, authority to do anything. Like, maybe we could do it ourselves. So anyway, these snowballs kept happening and these things kept unfolding, and I kept getting invited into a new kind of terrain of what it meant to be a plant person.
Yeah. Yeah.
So there's endless threads.
Yeah. Would you carry around? Would you have an herbal first aid kit with you? You just be bringing that out. Yeah.
Yeah.
So what were some of the
day.
things just that you'd have in case you ran into something?
Powdered yarrow.
That's in my first aid. I have that in my bag.
Powdered yarrow.
Yarrow's in my bag all the time.
Yeah. Amazing.
Yeah. OSHA and yarrow are the two I always travel with in my bag. And so for folks that know this, there's people maybe listening that are just not herbalists. They don't know what, some of these things are. And so yarrow, why yarrow? Why do we both have yarrow in our bags?
Oh gosh.
Why do I have it growing right over there?
Hey, hello. This is where I'm so grateful that a lot of my herbal study started in the kind of ethereal spirit realm, and then kind of started getting funneled into the equally as mystic world of phytochemistry and anatomy and physiology. But so yarrow is on the surface level, right? It's styptic, stops bleeding, and antimicrobial. But really, I learned about yarrow first as a protection plant.
Oh. Like how?
Something that has this sort of soft, and when you look at a yarrow leaf, it's kind of got this nice bushy nature, but yet you can see through it. So it's this semi-permeable membrane, and then the sort of aura of its aroma does something, to you mentally. But just knowing it as a protection plant and something that's a really important plant historically for women, and thinking about menstruation and birthing and birth work, and just something that a plant that's so often worked with on edges between crisis and life and death and emergency and emergence.
Yeah.
So it has this very beautiful kind of edge rider vibe about it. But that was, one of the first plants that I would keep in my kit. Yeah. And And always I wear a scarf. I always have a scarf or a hanky, you know?
Yeah.
Not just for flair, but,
Yep.
you know, comes in handy.
Yes.
Things like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What are some other things that were in the kit?
Oh, man. Honey. Honey, like a little tiny jar of honey, because like for burns or wound care, but also to eat a little nib of it if someone's blood sugar is going down. And this was the thing too, is Chuck's whole
You
deal.
need like the holsters like with honey sticks, just like a strap of like ammunition of like honey sticks all.
Yeah, that actually, I love that idea.
Yeah.
That's the kind of holster we need.
Yes.
But Chuck's whole background too was doing like street, you know, urban herbalism, you know, street herbalism. So he would send his students sometimes to like, you know, he'd be like, okay, go in Richmond, which is a pretty like rough neighborhood in the East Bay, in the Bay Area.
Yeah.
He'd be like, all right, here's $1. I'm going to drop you off on the other side of town. I need you to come back to my house. And by the time you get here, you've been able to make a soup with your first aid kit.
A soup?
Or like something like, you know, he'd have these like really interesting, like urban survival challenges.
Nice.
It's like with $1, you know, like you go buy a carrot and an onion and then use your candle in your first aid kit to light beneath your little tin that you have, and go ask for some water at the McDonald's and be able to come back and have a soup, you know, like.
I love that.
But that's I love that vibe of resilience, you know, and always being able to make it work.
Yeah.
But yeah. Also, I definitely now need a honey holster.
Yeah, we gotta get honey holster.
Honey stick holster.
Honey stick holster. Anything else that was in there? I'm just so curious. This is...
I'm trying to remember what I would keep. I mean, a little knife, to be honest.
Sure.
A candle. I would sometimes have those like little rescue remedy candies.
Yeah.
You know, little something for trauma. If I came across something crazy, I'm like, here, have this candy.
Yeah.
I'm a stranger giving out. So see, I've always been a stranger
Candy.
giving out candy.
I know.
But stuff like that,
Yeah.
you know, stuff like that. Yeah, little balm.
Yeah, some balm and
Little balm.
salve, balm. And then, so from there, you got to Tucson then, like 4 or 5 years ago.
Yeah, I've been in Tucson for 4 years.
4 years
pretty
now.
much.
Yeah.
Almost.
What brought you here?
Ooh. My time in the Bay Area had been long finished, and it just took me a while to unhinge from that.
Mm-hmm.
And I've always, since I was a child, I've always had a fascination with the desert. I used to dress up as a cowboy when I was a kiddo.
Wow.
Oh yeah. Like I had white boots. Definitely had the bolo tie. You know, when I was like a kindergartner.
Yeah.
Definitely had a bolo tie. It was all about it. But that kind of love for the Southwest revitalized around 2012.
Yeah.
When I started getting really into understanding the history of the Kachinas and trying to understand what that was all about, and started getting really into, you know, Southwest archaeology and petroglyphs, and I just knew I had to come out here. Mm-hmm. So it was something just in my heart for a long time, and
Yeah.
when the time had come to leave the Bay Area, I knew I needed to be out in the desert,
Yeah.
but I didn't know where, so I just took a road trip out here and drove all around Arizona, New Mexico, Colorado, just exploring, and happened to go to this herbalism conference, and there was a teacher whose style I just became completely enamored by Kenneth Profrock. So he's a naturopath doctor just north of Phoenix, and that story is super wild in itself, but ended up being invited to...
What was that? What happened?
Oh, God. I ended up being invited to
I
study
let
with
some
him.
of those slip, but I got to hear this one.
Yeah. Okay, so what happened is I knew that part of my journey coming to the Southwest was I really wanted to study about cacti, and part of that was like thinking about if I can learn how to grow food and grow herbs in the desert, if I can learn how to be with plants that live in the most extreme condition, then I can live and survive anywhere.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that was like part of that, but I always had this thing like, I'm here to learn about cacti. And at this herb conference, Dr. Profrock was teaching this class called Magical Cacti. So I went to this cacti class and blew my mind. Didn't know what he was going to talk about. Blew my mind. He ended up talking a lot about the history of peyote and how it's been worked with and how it's being worked with now. And he talked about a lot of different aspects of that and putting it a lot in cultural reference and speaking so much about how the ritual changed everything. And this was around the same time that his partner, who I didn't realize at the time, his partner had walked up to me and she's like, well, you asked some really interesting questions in class. Like, I'd like to introduce you to Kenneth. And I was like, I would love that. But I was kind of nervous because everyone storms him at the end of a talk. So she introduces him to me and she's like, Kenneth, this is Ash. She'd like to study with you. And I was like, what? I didn't say any of that. She's like, she'd like to study with you. Do you think we could get her in starting this autumn? And he was like, nice to meet you. It sounds great. And I didn't even ask,
Wow.
But
Yeah.
of course, so I get out of that class and I get a text message that my grandpa had just passed away.
Oh, wow.
And it was really powerful because what do they call a peyote cactus? Grandfather,
Yeah.
right? So there was this really interesting thing where I felt like Grandpa saw like passed the torch through the cacti to be like, all right, here's the go. Like you live somewhere around this guy so you could study with him. And and I did not want to live in Phoenix, so Tucson.
Yeah.
And there's more to why Tucson came up, but yeah, that's definitely a big part of the story. And I'm really, 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 really lucky that opportunity arose.
Yeah. So what were you focusing with studying? Because that's kind of when I met you, you being at the herb store and then just hearing like, oh, you're going up to study, this weekend, this week. Going. What was that like with
Dr. P?
Yeah.
I honestly was so intimidated. I felt like a fish out of water because basically I was shadowing him in his office and he trusted me to come in and sit in with clients, with patients.
Yeah.
So I would just be by his side and listen to his conversations he had with his patients and then go back into his, private office room and we would talk about, he'd be like, this is why I chose this formula for them and this is what I'm thinking and da-da-da. But he would also pose questions to me, which was really interesting. But he's not just working with herbs, he's working with all these kind of naturopathic supplements and things. And again, I was like, oh my gosh, I don't know what all of this means. But that's what I've always thrived on, is putting myself in places where it kind of made me grow, out of the comfort zone a little bit.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's, I remember the first day I went up to shadow him, he was like, all right, we're going to take this blood sample and we're going to spin it down in the centrifuge and then we're going to do this and we're going to make this nasal spray. And I was just like, whoa, I hope that he keeps me around because I don't understand this at all. And eventually, it was really amazing. And this is the thing, whenever people ask me, they're like, how'd you get into herbalism? And do you think I should go to an herb school? And I'm like, when all is said and done, the most I've learned is from just bearing witness to people and how they do their thing, and then asking really good questions whenever I can ask really good questions, which usually end up being more about the philosophical nature than like what the chemistry of this plant is and why this and that. So Dr. P and I would just ask him questions like, how do you talk to somebody about addiction, or like how do you deal with going home and bearing the weight of all these stories that you've heard all day. And that side of things is more just his way of being.
Yeah.
Which is always the thing with teachers for me is, it's more the way of being that's going to stick. Mm-hmm. I'm not going to remember all the technical blah, blah, blah. Even if I took notes, like,
yeah,
that's just baggage. What I really learned is how they are, as their heart and how they connect with people. But yeah, I was driving up there for 2 years.
Wow.
It was amazing.
Wow. It's amazing.
I'm so lucky.
It is. It's great. And so yeah, just what you're saying here about, you are addressing, and I know the constituents of these plants and what's going on. So you do know all that.
I do.
And you also are looking at this other side of it, the energetics of the plants.
Yeah.
And how is it working in relationship to the person and the holistic view of this person in relation to what is creating dis-ease in their life. Mm-hmm. And how can these plants, have traditionally been used to connect the worlds. That's it. That's the ticket. It's like my curiosity has always been about like gathering info from all the versions of how this could look. Yeah. And especially, as someone like I wasn't initiated by an ancestral, in some ways, but it's like my mom wasn't an herbalist. Mm-hmm. My grandma wasn't an herbalist, although my grandma was a very amazing cook, which has its own. Yeah. But what kind of cook? Oh gosh, Grandma Genia. Yeah. From Poland. Because we both have that Polish ancestry. Everything was Grandma Genia and Grandma and Grandpa were from Czestochowa, which is where the Black Madonna. One of the Black Madonnas is, which is a whole other cool story. But Grandma made everything from scratch. Yeah. Every single thing, So that's the lineage that I was initiated into, is the scratch made. You measure with your eyes and you measure with your taste buds. And now that I'm an herbalist, I'm like, oh yeah, we call that organoleptic, testing. Right. But that's what they were just doing. That's the way. I don't remember her, but my great grandmother Busha, and she was straight from Poland, and in the farmlands of northwestern Pennsylvania, out near Erie, where my dad's from, and we had the same birthday. And there's a picture I have here in my room of her holding me with my dad, and so she would just grow all these plants and have have them all stored up on and it was just that was the way. That's the way. It's like that's what her so she was growing everything. She grew her own food and grow herbs and medicines and well, and Grandma, I remember Rumianic chamomile. That was her plant. Wow. Rumianic. That was her plant, that was always there. Yeah. So, wow. What was that? What would she use for? Because I love chamomile. I've been drinking it a lot lately. Yeah. With stressors that have been coming up. And it's funny because from my time, and I know my way around with plants just because I've been at the herb store. I partnered with Amanda for all this time. I worked there for a long time. I know a good amount, but it's like I kind of at a certain point you're like, oh, chamomile, it's just like it's like celestial seasonings kind of stuff, Right. You're just like, oh, it's just whatever. And coming around to it recently, it's like so powerful and such an amazing plant. It is. Like, I'm surprised at how powerful it is, just like when I really look at it, What are your thoughts on that? Yeah, like just fucking chamomile here. Chamomile, it's the gateway plant. Workshop in chamomile. Yeah, the gateway plant. It's the gateway plant. It's like it's one of those touchstones where someone's weirded out by It's real
herbs.
safe. You're like, you can get chamomile. You can order
yeah.
chamomile at the coffee shop.
Yeah,
You can
that's
get
the
it
safe zone.
It is.
It's the gateway. And then, and that's one of the things too, where, if you make it in a tea bag, blah, 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 chamomile tea, but then all of a sudden this world starts opening up where, oh, what if you infuse it in oil? Or, oh, what if I steep it overnight? And all of a sudden it becomes a little bit more bitter.
Yeah.
And that sort of the natural curiosity, because I've always been curious and I've always been willing to experiment on myself, which is, I don't necessarily condone that publicly to everyone, but,
Well,
but in that spirit, right?
Yeah.
In that spirit, chamomile, for example, it's like, oh yeah, what if you steep it for 5 minutes? What if you steep it for overnight?
yeah.
You have two different animals,
Yeah.
What if I work with it in an oil? What if I work with it topically for pink eye? I mean, it's one of the best things.
Yeah, I have had, so here's something with styes. I've had
Yeah.
a few styes over the past few years.
Yeah.
I steep some chamomile, I put a little poultice on, and it's gone
Boom,
in
bam.
5 or 10 minutes.
Yeah.
It's just completely gone. It's happened every time. So I should put that in their herbal first aid, I guess.
Definitely. Well, and I think there's something powerful about working with plants that have been in our memory banks, our smell memory banks, and our
Yeah.
ancestral memory banks.
Yeah.
There's a whole kind of field, the morphic resonance field, or whatever you want to call it. There's a whole field that comes with that, whether it's chamomile or whether it's like the ancestral food, the food I grew up eating from grandma.
Yeah.
And similarly to how that whole grandpa transmission through the cactus thing happened, the when grandma passed away was right around the time that I sort of by happenstance got a job as a cook,
Aha.
which
Yeah.
started my cooking journey.
Right. And so here's
Yeah.
another thing. You're an incredible cook. I mean, I've had some of the stuff in some of the classes you were doing at the herb store.
Thank you.
Herbal broths and soups, like amazing. And so that's like kind of coming in from your grandmother.
It's definitely
Coming
coming
down
in
the line.
from grandma.
Yeah.
It's coming in from grandma, and it's coming in from my pop on my dad's side. Pop, who's like one of my greatest
Yeah.
pinnacle people in my heart.
Yeah.
Because Pop was an amazing cook, too. Like,
Yeah.
high grade. In fact, my Nana and Pop wrote a cookbook
Really?
that never got published.
What? Wow.
So I plan on, secrets out, but I plan on writing a cookbook just to, like, kind of, for me and for them.
Yeah.
You know.
Do you have their cookbook? Do you have it?
My dad, one of the family members
You
has
have these like lost
printout.
things, the record and
Yeah.
the cookbook. It's it's cool.
Yeah, the art.
Yeah.
No, they wrote a cookbook. I think it was called Delight Stuff.
Delight stuff.
And it was really cute, It was like health. So they were on this whole thing of like, their version of healthy food. They wrote this
Yeah.
cookbook. Anyway, so cooking. I got this job as a cook, and long story short, I'd been training in the plant world.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden I get this job as a cook, and I'm vegetarian. So in a cafe that's definitely not vegetarian. And thank goodness, thank you, Keba Conte, the owner of this cafe. He's a beautiful person, by the way, but long story short, he let me start cooking all the soups of whatever recipes I wanted to create.
Oh, nice.
I gave him one, and I was like, what do you think of this? And when he liked it, he's like, okay, go for it.
Oh.
He gave me full, kind of like on a similar note with Amanda, your partner, when I was like, I really want to teach, but, I'm kind of nervous about it. And she's like, go for it.
Yeah.
Go for it. Go for it. You can do whatever classes you want.
Got the green light.
Got the green light. So, but when I started cooking at this cafe, I was the soup mama.
Oh.
And that's when I started experimenting with herbal recipe cookery to the public.
Yeah.
And I'd be like, yeah, I'm going to make this amazing vegetable soup, and there are nettles in the broth.
Yes.
Or like, yeah, I'm going to make this, really weird kind of plantain. That was my most famous soup, was this plantain, like, quinoa, bell pepper situation.
Plantain leaf.
plant. Oh no, the
Plantain.
the bananas
yeah.
friend.
Yeah.
Ooh, I
Banana's
should have put
friend.
plantain leaf in it though.
It's interesting, yeah.
But where I'd add in
Yeah.
epizote, and then
Yeah.
I'd have I'd make like a little sign on the counter that was like epizote, and
Nice.
started kind of playing with that whole thing, and
Yeah.
ended up becoming a personal chef. A few people were like, we love your soups, will you make us extra soup? And ended up becoming a personal chef. Then I was like, well, what if I custom tailored the food to your health needs? So I would do essentially like a consult, an herbal consult, and then work the herbs into their food.
Nice.
And it was in the Bay Area, that was easy to do. It was like cooking for tech bros.
Of course. Yeah, the tech.
The young tech bros, giving them some herbal broths.
They want it. They need it.
Mm-hmm.
They're life hacking, biohacking themselves
They are.
to get the most productive amount.
They are.
If the
But
soup's
yeah,
going to
like-
help them program, they're going to do it.
Turning people onto nopal cactus for the first time and things like this where
Yeah.
I just had this, it was in my bones.
Yeah.
I just felt, especially, and that was around when Grandma passed, so it felt like the right thing to do.
Yeah.
And a way that people would be down for it. Because not everyone's down to take bitters tincture.
No, not everyone is, but they should. Because it's
Yeah.
so good. You need bitter stuff, everyone.
Bitters
Have bitter
are cool.
stuff. Bitters are good for you.
The missing link
Do you think they're the missing link?
in the standard American diet.
Yeah, we don't do
yeah.
bitter stuff. It's
No,
like
no.
an aversion to it, and yet it's like so good for your digestion,
Yeah.
your heart.
Yeah. Yeah, and all this whole cascade of things happen when we eat the bitters.
Yeah. Like, yeah, you know what?
Oh, yeah.
Forgot about these. I'm going to have one of these right now. This is an interesting one. Let's talk about this for a sec. Because
Oh
you
my
brought
gosh.
this. What is this?
One of my
what
favorite-
What I'm about to eat.
One of my
I'm about
favorite
to do
things
it. I'm
ever.
doing it.
I'll have one too.
There it is. It's in my mouth.
Schizandra.
Schizandra berries.
Schizandra berries, the ultimate Willy Wonka taste experience of,
It has every flavor.
5 flavor.
I've heard 6. What's the 6th
What's
flavor?
the
Isn't there
sixth?
like a 6th flavor? Isn't there like an elusive 6th flavor?
There's always an elusive extra number, right?
Right.
Like 12, there's like 12 astrological signs, but really there's 13.
Right.
Or there's, but 13's scary, so we're not going to talk about that.
13. Yeah. Can't
There's
go
always
there.
the hidden
hidden number.
in the esoteric numbers.
But these are like, so it has all the flavors.
Okay, yeah.
You roll it around and you taste it all.
Whew.
It's really good for your adrenals.
Sure.
It's good. It's an adaptogen, right? So this is like, in layman's terms, just helps to work with your system for what you need, such as, this is what I know. I should chime in with anything you have to add with
yeah.
Schizandra, but I've always heard, like, you're feeling a little tired, you have a Schizandra. You're too hyped up, have a little Schizandra. Mm-hmm. Right? So it can work with that. Adapt as you go.
Sure. Well, this is the thing about our relationship with our senses, right? Like, we've been coddled. A lot of us, at least if, we grew up in a standard, whatever this means, the standard American, whatever version of that, we're coddled, right? Even to the point where, like, how we've chosen to breed out lettuce.
Yeah.
Because the old,
Yeah.
wild lettuce is a very bitter plant.
Right.
But now we have, like, romaine.
Yeah. Yeah, romaine. Right.
That romaine lettuce. So
Yeah.
the
Or iceberg.
Right? Oh God,
Haven't had that in a
iceberg.
long time.
Oh yeah,
Kind of miss it in a way. But
iceberg was the only
around.
lettuce I remember we could find in Wisconsin for a long time. How
I
times
bet.
have changed.
yeah, right. Big
Now
change.
how times have changed, but the profoundness of experiencing all the flavors or all the smells or the fullness of our senses.
Yeah.
So Schizandra reminds me of that because it allows us to be all of a sudden in really immediate relationship with sweet, sour, salty, pungent, bitter, like acrid, like whoa,
Yeah.
what the heck is going on? And I think in that moment with our taste buds of what the heck is going on, it recenters us, it recalibrates us emotionally. It's like one of my favorite things to bring back to center. Like Dr. P always said, it's astringent to the spirit, which I love that.
I like that. Yeah.
But especially, if there's any kind of traumatic brain injury, or even just for those of us that, like myself, that can get really like even right now, I'm like, oh, what's that shiny thing over there? Schizandra's really good at
the senses really
snapping us into that sort of central place, and
I feel like it definitely does a little like zoop.
Zoop, definitely
does
a zoop.
It gets a zoop going for you.
Very zoopy. But yeah, I mean, there's a whole heap of stuff about, great for the lungs, great for liver function.
Mm-hmm.
We could talk for an hour about schizandra berry, but it's,
we could go
it's
on
something
for days about schizandra.
Oh man, I mean, it's something that I love. When I was doing when we actually, once upon a time, when there were in-person classes, I was doing, thank you, Amanda Brown. I was doing classes at Tucson Herb Store in person, and I started by doing an herbal cooking class every month.
Yeah.
One of my favorite things ever was giving people their first schizandra berry.
Oh my
being
gosh.
like, oh, you want to try something different?
Yeah.
And just kind of watching. And I've heard people say that it's kind of like a litmus test. Seeing how someone reacts to it and what they taste first will kind of tell you about what's happening in their body or their mind.
Yeah.
So again, this is like,
what's the dominant flavor and what's going on from that?
It's scientific method, just not, not in a lab, not in a white coat, but it's like, oh yeah, I taste sour first. And I'm like, oh, interesting. Like,
yeah.
Are you salivating more? Maybe your digestion's going to improve,
That's pretty cool.
On and on and on. So it's like these little things that we can do.
Yeah.
Detective work and the scientific method and experimentation, but through like lived experience.
Yeah.
So anyway, that's why I love schizandra berry, but that's why I love food, just like chamomile, food in itself. Like if I can make something delicious, I can always slip in nettles, or I can always slip in schizandra. Even I made schizandra truffles once, and people were like, "These are amazing. What's this all about?"
Yeah, what's happening here?
So,
nettles are amazing. I mean, we have them all over our yard now because of like one batch that got in, and now they're they come up every year, and I just let them go. I take some, I dry them out, I have a stock of tea, and then I do a lot that I'm just letting fresh, and then it's soup time, and snip them off.
Love them.
It's great. It's so good. They're really great. And just tallying back to what you said there with like trusting your lived experience, I think is really important, and something that I think it's really great for folks to be able to get back in touch with that part of themselves, and know that you do have the answers in you, and you can trust what your experience is, and learning more of that, get in touch with your gut instinct, and following that a little more, in times of everything's at our disposal, because I'm guilty of it. I can't think of something, I look it up, and although that's amazing, it also can detract from sometimes being able to just like go in and like, okay, I got that, I know that. I mean, sure, you want to know what Tom Cruise's birthday is? Well, look it up. Talk about Tom Cruise before the episode. Me talking about him. I don't want to put that on you, Ash.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know about that guy.
Yeah, I'll take full credit for my love of Tom Cruise.
Oh wow!
And,
I had no idea.
Yeah, that can be something. People can challenge me on that. I've converted some people to at least acknowledging, yes, I can dig Tom Cruise.
Have you seen the fake? Have you seen the fake Tom Cruise on?
Yes.
I don't know what you call that, through some sort of AI technology.
Yeah, the deep fakes. The deep fakes they do. Yeah.
Deep fake Tom Cruise
stuff. Yeah. Start to morph
Even
their
you
faces.
too could morph into Tom Cruise.
Yes. Anyone can morph into their Tom Cruise. But,
oh no.
But yeah, just getting back to like everything's there. I can look it up, and then it's really important to also build that muscle of like, hey, I know this. I like this. This will be good. This will be good for me. I can feel that. I can get to know this part of me.
And there's a time and a place for everything, right? That's why like I engage with plants the way I do. Like why it's equally as important for me to go into looking at how a naturopathic doctor works with herbs to looking at how my grandma or some of my indigenous teachers work with herbs, and being able to find the common thread, because there's always a common thread.
Yeah.
And sometimes there's not, but you know what? There's a time and a place for everything, and the empowering experience of being full spectrum living.
Yeah.
Full spectrum living, and especially in a time where we are being corralled, for better and for worse, to be more digitally minded. And so yeah, I love the just kind of trying whatever I can and how I share about herbs to just reinforce that relation. It's a relational thing, and a relationship with body, mind, landscape, birds, plant, trees, clouds, rocks. I mean, it's all ancestors. It's all kind of we're all relations, and how I can relate to my body instead of just being a talking head, or running through in my caffeinated kind of whatever the version of reality that's being put out there, how people want to get their coin, make their living.
How people can get their nabble up their bitcoins.
Oh yeah.
What
Oh yeah, the invisible visible.
Yeah, I like that. We talked about that recently, like
We
how
did.
much we are how much we are being able to put the trust in the invisible worlds right now, and how much that's a part of our lives. And it's kind of amazing, that there is this time and place that is like the invisible is becoming so much more real. And, it's like, well, yeah, interesting what other doors open from that, for people to start to really connect with other invisibles.
Exactly. It's so
That makes sense.
Which, by the way, all I'll say is, who's read that graphic novel? And I won't say anything more about it. The Invisibles.
I haven't read that.
Ugh.
Ooh,
Ugh. Just another post-apocalyptic superhero tale.
cool. Yes.
Yeah, and that's the funny thing about the nature of all this, whether it's talking about plants and what are plants all about,
Yeah.
There's levels and layers and different kind of densities to it, right? Which is the same with the invisible stuff, like Bitcoin and Ethereum and all this is this invisible currency, yet the lower density, like visible aspect of it is like servers in the middle of the sea.
Right.
So there's always these layers and levels to it, but yeah, just there is this desire, I think there's this inherent desire to lean into the invisible that we've deprived ourselves of so much in Western culture for so long, that now it's deciding to creep in as cell phones and Zoom and Bitcoin, but it's all kind of speaking to that essence of trusting the unseen.
Yeah.
Soon we'll have replicators like Star Trek and just
Star Trek, yeah. Well, we haven't gotten into Star Trek, but the love of Star Trek, Star Trek, mainly Next Gen.
Next Gen.
That's the one, and
It is.
That's just go watch it. People who are listening have not watched Star Trek Next Generation. Please.
Especially now, because so much of what they spoke to is now really becoming in our faces.
Yeah.
It's fascinating.
Amazing.
I know.
So good.
Well, I don't, I never really, even, before, since teenagehood, I've never lived with the TV, really.
Yeah.
So it's cool to engage in, I love sci-fi and the kind of, like, future visioning and
Yeah.
That's, I think, what really draws me in about Star Trek is this future visioning and spirit of exploration and the spirit of curiosity, because curiosity is my driving force in everything I do, whether it's music, whether it's plants, whether it's this, that, and the other. It's all about, that's what keeps me going.
Yeah.
Being curious. And Star Trek is one of those things where it's like, wow, what would it be like to meet another, in some other being from another place, and what would it look like to do no harm? What would it look like to engage with totally different taboos and ways of seeing, ways of eating, on and on and on, ways of communicating, what's right and wrong. Oh my God, Star Trek is
amazing.
the best.
It's an amazing, the moral and ethical compass that's built into that show and the stories. It's so good. So I want to hear about Candy of the Month Club.
Oh yeah.
Go from Star Trek to that. Yeah. So you're doing this Candy of the Month Club right now.
Yeah.
And it's incredible. I've had many of those candies.
Thank you.
Over the past couple years, really.
Yeah.
The last one you just brought was a caramel, and it was like cashew, hibiscus, honey, or was there no honey?
No honey. Pink peppercorn.
Pink peppercorn
and strawberry.
Amazing. I mean, this is like the best candies,
Thanks.
Yeah. So how's that been? Like,
It's been.
It's a lot of work, and
it's a huge amount of work, but it's like the ultimate labor of love.
Yeah.
It speaks to so much of. It's secretly such a deep statement.
Yeah.
But on the surface, it's like, here, have something delicious,
Right.
Surprise, but secretly, it's such a deep thing, and it actually was. It was another one of those things where it was sort of born on accident, in a way. I mean, I was doing these herbal cooking classes, and I did an herbal ice cream sundaes class.
Oh my gosh!
Do you remember that?
I do. I didn't get to go, but I remember you did that, and it's like, I wish I'd been there.
Well, I have visions of at some point having a herbal ice cream sundae
social
party, ice cream sundae social.
It's a social.
Yeah, definitely. But I did this herbal ice cream sundaes class, and I brought, I made a homemade ice cream, and I just kind of like
what was in it? What was it?
Yeah, I choose ingredients based on seasonality, and I always want to feature something either that's locally popping off or something that speaks to the season that we're in, and maybe how its medicine way is beneficial in the spring. So I made this. It's peach season. I'm a freak for peaches, and I made this peach ice cream. And then I was like, okay, well, I gotta have all the fixins, so I'm gonna make like a chocolate fudge, and I think I made like a turkey tail like fudge sauce. And then I made this caramel. And I made the caramel, this was my secret, I made the caramel with peach leaves. It also had some other stuff, but I made this caramel with peach leaves, because a lot of people don't know that peach leaf is one of my favorite herbal buddies. Beautiful medicine. And people flipped out for this caramel sauce. And I remember, I saw people, when people are at like a potluck and they start kind of hoarding something, and I started feeling kind of protective over this jar of caramel sauce. So there was this whole energy around this jar of caramel where I was trying to make sure everyone got enough, because some people were going crazy with the sauce, and
they were hitting the sauce hard.
They were really going for it, and I was feeling like a security guard on the caramel sauce. And I remember somebody said, hey, would you ever, sell me a jar of this caramel sauce? And I was like, yeah, I guess, sure, and I thought I had put my personal chef days behind me, so I was a little bit apprehensive. And then again, I remember I did a medicinal mushrooms cooking class, and I made caramels because of this whole caramel vibe. I made candy cap mushroom caramels with sassafras.
Oh my gosh.
I also love. And then I put a picture of it on Instagram. This is how it all starts, right?
Yeah.
Put a picture of it on Instagram, and then a bunch of people were freaking out that I've never met before. They were like, "Hey,
it's a candygram."
It was it became this thing, people were like, would you sell me some? And I said, okay. And then you were actually, Bradford, you were one of the first people I told my idea to, where I was like, you know what? I think I'm going to do this candy subscription service called Candy of the Month Club.
Yes.
And it was born really out of this whole caramel vibe. But yeah, it's been over a year, and I make a different candy every month.
Yeah.
And I do a hand-doodled zine because I love the spirit of doodling and scribing and non-linear sort of like fun note-taking. So that's part of what comes with the Candy Club. But it's really also like a I don't know, not to sound too woo-woo, but I feel like I try and gather up some sort of energetic prayer with the plants that I choose.
Yeah.
And whatever the candy is about is something that I'm just trying to like put out there in the world, and it's in relationship with the seasons and what's blooming and how we're blooming and how we can stay resilient. It just felt like the right thing to do too. And I got into it before all of this stuff started happening in the world, pre-pandemic, but just it felt like such a powerful offering to make, to keep providing some kind of sweetness, consistent sweetness in people's life and in my own life.
Yeah.
In the face of not necessarily sweet societal context.
Yeah.
So yeah, it has a lot of meaning infused into it, besides being like the gateway to being curious about plant herbal ways.
Yeah, smart.
Yeah.
Smart, skillful means there to get them in.
Surprise! Yeah,
surprise! You've been herbed.
You've been herbed. Yeah. So that's that.
Can people and I'll link where people can like get that and everything.
Thank you.
Yeah, because that would be great. You got to do it, people. Come on, it's amazing. We're subscribed right now, so please do. You're not going to regret it. It's all worth every penny, every shiny penny.
Yeah, it's a big labor of love.
Yeah.
I have a email list.
Yeah.
Every month, I just once a month, nothing crazy, but once a month I send out a little love note and say, hey, this is the candy I'm making this month, and here's a class that I may or may not be teaching, and people can find that on that info.
We'll link it here, and you'll have it all. Look at the links. Check out the links so you can see everything that Ash is up to.
Linky.
Yeah. Linky. And then...
Yeah.
Cool, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Couple questions before we go. This is definitely going to pivot a bit.
Good.
What's your favorite, or what was your favorite toy growing up? This is something I ask everybody. This is tend to be almost everyone. I think I missed one or two guests, but what your favorite toy?
Wow. That's actually a really hard thing to answer. I love drawing. You know what I actually loved doing was I did this thing where I don't know how I got this idea, but I would leave crayons out in the sun until they got kind of melty, and then I would kind of do these weird drawings with them.
Nice. Like mix colors and then do these...
I don't know, crayons?
That's perfect. That's great. That's a great answer.
Crayons. And honestly, I did have a little like cassette thing that I could record on, and I would
the Fisher-Price thing?
Yeah.
Oh,
and I would do like radio shows with myself.
Nice.
It's like little.
Do you have any? Do you still have any of those?
I wonder.
Child psychosis.
Little psychosis.
Radio show.
They could very well be somewhere in my dad's storage unit, and I don't know.
Interviewing your invisible friends.
That's right.
The invisible.
Yeah, that's right.
Come back for that.
Or like the play-by-play of cleaning my room. I remember I would do that. Like, and now for this next feature.
I found a cassette of me because I did the same thing. Fisher-Price. I remember it was a brown Fisher-Price, one of the recorders. Mm-hmm. I found one this past summer, and it was like, one of them was me getting in trouble because I think I was like obviously doing something and like
I've gotten in trouble
trying
from
to
them
like
too.
record, and while somebody and my dad was like can you say sorry? I was like, I'm sorry.
Busted.
Another question here, last one, is favorite movie of all time.
Oh, wow. That's funny. I could talk about music all day and all night, but
I know.
movie.
I realized while we were doing the show, I was like, I probably want to add another like favorite album of all time.
God.
It's kind of these couple of questions, but like, I mean, it's okay. You could say
Movie? No, I'll think of a
say
movie.
album, but if you think
I'll
of a
think
movie,
of a movie. I mean,
or like one that was inspiring or something.
gosh. See, I overthink these things too. So
Yeah.
I'm like, how could I choose one? There are categories.
Yeah.
I love all the Miyazaki
Yes.
movies for
Yeah.
sure. Especially like Spirited Away. But I didn't, Nausicaa and the Valley of the Wind was the first one I saw. I didn't see that till I was in college.
Yeah.
But
It's an older kid movie.
some movies that stand out: Dark Crystal, Brazil.
Yeah.
Remember that one?
Oh yeah. That just came up with a couple guests ago. I think
Really?
Eric Wagner. He said Brazil. Yeah.
That's a trippy one.
Yeah.
Stuff like that.
Yeah.
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 It's great. So people will know where to find you. I'm going to link some things. And anything else you want to just like throw out as far as, check me out, look at me.
Yeah. Oh my God. Man, I'm just so grateful, I'm just so grateful because so much of this meandering path has been off the grid, and I purposefully didn't think I wanted it to be on the grid for a long time.
Yeah.
So I'm just really humbled to now bop onto the grid and be met so kindly and to be, for the past, like, I guess, officially, consistently, like, 3 years I've been teaching classes. And, honestly, I'm trying to give voice, because now it's like herbalism is trending now, and this is something Amanda and I talk about a lot, where it's like, we got into this when it was still really weird, and it wasn't as cool to, like, do it. So now that it's becoming like kind of a whatever hashtag-y thing, I really want to try and give voice to a different kind of angle and a different kind of perspective on the plants than what I see being out there right now. So
just a pound sign.
I know. I wish I would remember the tone of it.
I know.
Boop.
Yeah, it had a very distinct tone on the
Do. But yeah, anything I want to say, I'm just really grateful that people are like down to engage with me in my perspective and my process, and as I've like revealed myself onto the digital terrain. And anything I want to say, just no matter what's going on out there, nature is resilient and will always find a way. And the more I feel like we can align with that movement and rhythm, the more that we can hang in there and do beautiful things no matter what. So that's where my heart is at in all of this, is just aligning with that rhythm of life and feeling creative, curious, and maybe even empowered.
Nice. Awesome. Thanks so much, Ash. That's right.
Oh gosh.
Appreciate it. Yeah. Great having you here.
Thanks for engaging the poor infused rambles.
I feel great.
Yeah, me too.
Feels great.
Aw.
Nice. All right. Take care. I'll see you soon.
Okay, bye.
That was fun. And I'm still a little, I realized I was like shaking a little bit towards the end, and I think that was the pu'er tea and the ginkgo tea I had. I had one on either side and was just going for it. We definitely were drinking. We were drinking our teas, our respective teas there. And how about those sound effects that were coming in out there. They just seemed to really be right on cue with what we were talking about, the content we were talking about, and Ash's storytelling. Yeah. I'm really excited to check out the Purple Majesty music. I'm going to look for that. I mean, gosh, Ramones. I got to see the Ramones twice, and that's definitely a highlight of my concert going experience. I got to see their last tour, and so good. I was at the Electric Factory in Philadelphia, and it was just like this blast of, you could just tell they've been doing this for 30 years. I guess, yeah, about 30 years. That was cool. But yeah, really fun talking to Ash and hearing these really amazing studies and explorations that she's been a part of, the apprenticeships she's taken part in. And she is just so well, I mean, she's being modest, but she's very, very well studied regarding herbal medicine. She's done a lot of many, many years in this field, and it was great. One more plug for the Candy of the Month Club. Please consider joining that. And I just keep enjoying being here with you and doing these shows. I'm going to plug my Patreon if you'd like. There's some goodies on there. And feel free, to kick down a few nickels. Well, don't give me nickels. Maybe $1. You can give $1. That'd be all right. $1. A little bit of that. And otherwise, just enjoy it, even if you don't do that. I'm happy to be doing this, and I'm very much enjoying it. I just got this really nice new microphone for the show, and so I have got some nice mics now for the live guests that we've been doing outside. It's been great. And yeah, I know I'm always going to be outside for a couple hours and getting some fresh air when I have a podcast day. And that's really nice to look forward to. So I am happy to be here, and I'm happy that you're there. So live this love this life. See you soon.
May all your wishes come true. All my friends till the very end. Thank you for the fun and the play. Till next time, I hope you all be fine. Live to see another day. Live to see another day. Live to see another day.